Alex Paulton. I'd like to welcome you to Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today, we're going to do an episode that several of you had asked about, but I wasn't able to do until very recently because one of my best pieces was out at the Accutron doctor in Japan. If anyone wants to know about him, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to give you his contact information. But he is a phenomenal Accutron watchmaker, mechanic, repairer, craftsman. I'll give you an example, and I'll keep moving on because this is going to be a long episode anyway. He sent me, along with some cookies in my returned watch and the replaced parts. Alex-san, the base plate is no longer gold in color. I had to replace it. And I only paid $560. I mean, I waited a year, but I told him I'd rather you take your time and do it when you can, and I'll pay you, then a reasonable price. I don't need a rush job. And so I waited a year, and he did charge me a remarkably reasonable price, $560, to have a Turtle Omega Speedsonic. He completely re-welded the bracelet. Look how firm that is. He rebuilt the entire piece, replaced the base plate and some other parts. This is as good as new. Speedsonic. I did an episode a long time ago with some other pieces, but I'm going to do a special episode on it because this is also a very, very fun watch. I mean, this is obviously not a daily wear unless you're an eccentric type of person, like a Nicolas Cage type of person that would wear, a leopard patterned watch along to match his jewelry. This is the kind of watch I always like to think of as, I want to see the flying car that went with this. The designer of this watch was imagining some potential future in their mind, and this came out. And I think this is a cool piece, the lobster. I'm not in love with the mirror face, but you have to take, the good with the bad, and the mirror face actually fits its character. Now, let's go ahead, because I could wax poetic about all of these watches now, but let's go ahead and turn the camera around and we'll talk about the existing collection. Then I'll go to the phone and we'll look at my Chrono 24 account, and I'll go over some of the watches, well, actually all, since I'll just scroll through the list, but we'll look at the watches that I sold over the last 18 months to get me to this collection. The thing about the way I've been collecting and the way my journey through watch collecting has progressed, frankly, a lot of it has been accelerated in the last 2 years because of this show, because it's forced me to really think about why I'm doing things. And I have to rationalize and I have to explain my decisions to you. And obviously, we all have to explain things to ourselves, but sometimes we get around it a lot, And so that's one of the reasons that I had, my thoughts about Rolex and Tudor and my love-hate relationship with some brands and where the journey is taking me. And I feel I'm a much better collector now than I was. And I can also see how much farther I have to go, because I'm still full of all kinds of my own notions that may or may not be all that valid. And I'm willing to let you all correct me on any that you disagree with. So this collection, as I was saying, I moved a lot of watches in the last 2 years, and these are basically the watches that I'm not willing to sell. And that's either because I've fallen in love with them, like the Omega Globemaster. I'm shooting this after the close-ups, and during the close-ups I bring it up, but I realized that if I was wearing a watch and came home and someone actually managed to, break into my safe and steal everything, and all I had was the watch on my wrist, I'd want it to be the Globemaster. If I had a one-watch collection at this point in my collecting journey, I'd go with this Globemaster annual calendar because it gives you the time, gives you the date. You only have to adjust the day once a year. Tungsten carbide bezel, beautifully domed sapphire crystal, and a display back, the best in the Omega lineup, in my humble opinion, because of the medallion with the observatory and the stars. So let's turn the camera around and take a look at all of them. And I'll even throw in the pocket watches and miscellaneous pieces like the Vostok that are not necessarily ones that I wear every day, but that are part of the collection because I just like having them. So let's do it. Here are all the watches. I'm not even able to do a wristwatch check because they're all here. Like I said, these are the watches that I've decided at this point in my collecting journey that I am not going to sell, either because I want to keep the watches or they mean something to me, or I don't want to sell them at the current market value. So I was going to start with the pocket watches, get them out of the way, and then go through the others. I'm going to try to go in a progression from the least expensive and more vintage to the more modern and more expensive. So let's start with the pocket watches. So this beautiful Pharaoh was a gift to me from a colleague of mine named Yefim. He used to have a shop called Zenith in Wiesbaden, but it was unfortunately a victim of the coronavirus quarantine. But it's a beautiful piece, stainless steel brushed back, gold bezel, gold colored, I'm assuming plated hands, and yellow, striking yellow on blue indices, numerals in this case. And the face is just gorgeous. That starburst is awesome. So let's move on. And I'm just going to put the watches to the side as I do this, and then that way when I run out of watches, I'll stop talking. This piece is a gift from my lady friend, Susanna, and it's kind of a presentation pocket watch, the kind you can pick up nowadays. She wanted to give me a little gift, and so she thought a skeleton watch wouldn't be a bad gift, and I agree with her, because even though this isn't specifically the kind of watch I would buy for myself, it is the kind of watch that I would be more than happy to take as a gift, because it is a nice piece, and it does give you an opportunity to look at a watch and how it functions in a very, very attractive presentation. This is a great gift watch, especially if you have somebody in your friendship circle or family who is a hipster of some sort. All right, moving on, we have, this is actually a pedometer. This pedometer, I only paid 50 euros for this pedometer, and it's from the 30s, I believe, brass case, and it has a pendulum weight inside, and you can see it adding up the steps. So it's just a simple step counter, gives me something to say to people who say that their electronic wristband can count steps. Then we have this beautiful piece. I recently had it refurbished. This is an Omega pocket watch from the 20s, and it's steel case, beautiful, beautiful heat blued hands. It's hard in this light to make it out, and the face has got that beautiful washed out look from a lot of exposure to sunlight, but since it was just a very clean face with ink, there's not a lot of destruction there. It's just a lot of fading, which just makes it beautiful, and the blue hands on that face is gorgeous. And I had it adjusted and cleaned so that I can use it as a second time zone watch. I'm going to do a whole segment on pocket watches separately and talk about them, but I just thought, let's look at all of these fun pieces. This piece is very interesting because it actually has a chunk of real history attached to it. This is a World War II nicknamed Jitterbug pilot and bombardier and navigator stopwatch. It was used to time speed. It was used to time bomb drops. It was used for navigational purposes, time and distance and fuel and such. And excellent, excellent, excellent workhorse tool, very, very rugged construction, and it beats at 40 times a second so that the 10-second stopwatch is accurate. So it's almost as innovative as the Zenith today, in its day. It's an Elgin manufactured, and it belonged to obviously someone in the service, and then it belonged to a horse breeder who used it to time horses, and then it belonged to an industrialist out of Silicon Valley who was a friend of mine and gifted it to me, and so I have this beautiful piece of history I'm really, really attached to. So, moving upward, I'll take a side trip into the novelty space. And I include this because novelty watches are a cool thing too. I don't wear it. I keep it looped over the arm of a C-3PO statue in my living room, but just doing that, it fulfills a purpose. And I once pointed out, who knows in the future, because it's a rare piece of junk that's official Star Wars, it is official Star Wars merchandise, it could theoretically be worth one day more than my entire collection. All right, so now let's move up the list and let's grab this piece. I really like this piece. This is a Mito. It's a interesting piece because it's from the 70s, and the Dado Day had a very interesting date function where you push the crown and it advanced the day. It's also a high beat, 5 hertz movement. So this was really top of the line in its day, and frankly, this is another one of the pieces in my collection that I have for its own sake. I don't wear, but I might gift to a family member if one of my nibblings or other assorted relatives would take an interest, for example. You know, at 200 euros for a nice piece of vintage history, you can't go wrong. Now, onward and upward, let's take another look at another, I shouldn't say another, I haven't done the video on this yet, but I intend to. This gorgeous Girard-Perregaux. This Girard-Perregaux is a bumper drive movement, and I actually open up and show the bumper drive in my Musings on Movements segment. And there's still a little bit of life in that radium. It's not the radium that's fading, it's the phosphor that's fading that they mix with the radium that enhances the emission. But it is still a gorgeous dress piece, and at just a little over 35 millimeters. Let's double check that. At a little over 35 millimeters, let's zoom out, whoops. Oh, actually, see, there we go. It's actually, 35 and a half. So you could still wear this with a nice suit, and it would be a sharp, retro thing to have. It's not, it's mineral crystal, I'm guessing, or good plastic. It could be plastic, but still just a beautiful, I'm going to zoom in a little tighter on that. See how tight I can zoom on that, because it is just a beautiful piece. See, so yeah, look at that face. That is just a gorgeous watch. And as I point out in my vintage watches episode, this is a good way to get your hands on some vintage. I only paid 200 euros for this piece, and it's a Girard-Perregaux with a horologically significant movement in it, and you could still wear it today and be very happy with it as a watch. All right. Onward and upward, let's see, what do we have? In the retro space, we have the Sorna. The Sorna is a recent acquisition, and this one cost me 400, but it was new, old stock, and I paired it with this brushed bracelet to really bring out the brushing in the case. And it shows you that, back in the 70s, they weren't that scared with funky design and interesting case shapes. And also, this leverages functionality phenomenally well, because it's got these crowns are to adjust the internal timing bezel and the the time of day, world time. But the watch doesn't have that functionality of timing and all. It's given to it by just really excellent dial design. So another example of how you can get a really, really nice piece at a good price, vintage. You know, if you bought a modern piece with this kind of bold design language, it would cost you 5 figures. Keeping moving, actually, let's go to the oldest vintage I believe left here on the table, and that is the Accutron. This Bulova Accutron came out late 50s, early 60s, and actually for several years was restricted for sale because the government considered an electronic watch more accurate than anything else available on the planet to be strategic technology, and I agree with them. So once it was released to the marketplace, it took everything over until Quartz showed up. You could get the Accutron in all kinds of watches, and the next watch I'll show you will also be a tuning fork watch, and that also has a bit of a story behind it. This one I picked up from a Russian gentleman who rebuilds and sells Accutrons out of Russia. Most Accutron action, to call it that, is mostly strong hobbyists because everyone else has given up on it, even the manufacturers. Case in point, this watch is what caused me to have to wait on making this episode, because until this one came back from the Accutron doctor in Japan, I couldn't have this episode, because this is a really, really nice piece, and it represents, you know, some of the reasons that I collect watches. I had a different Speedsonic, and I traded it for this one because I figured if I'm going to have a Speedsonic, I'm going to have a Speedsonic. I'm going to have a watch with such retro design that, you know, I'm going to look for the flying car that's supposed to have come with this thing. I would consider this a summer watch, as it would. I mean, it does. I didn't say it would. I've worn it often with a polo shirt or just some, you know, industry technology t-shirt, and it fits perfectly because it is so geeky, it is crazy, and it is so retro futuristic that it's casual cool in small doses. This model is called, its nickname is the Lobster. 3 guesses why they call it that. And one last interesting point about this before I move on is that it has a Seamaster logo on the back, which happens on some Omega models. Because they just use the parts that they had lying around, it appears, on some of these limited edition pieces. But there were a few Speedmasters that have Seamaster backs and such, because, well, it's all one big happy company, right? But this is a great piece. I'm very, very pleased that I had it serviced. The Accutron doctor did a complete rebuild, re-welded the links internally, did everything necessary to make sure that it will be good for the foreseeable future. Let's see. Oh, mineral crystal, it's not a, nope, not a sapphire. That's interesting, but it's not plastic. I'm very curious. If any of you out there know what the crystal on this watch is made of, let me know. Some kind of, it doesn't feel like plastic, but it is a really sharp watch. Here, I'll let you see the sweep on this here. I'll put it back down on this so you have a nice stable view, and just look at the smooth sweep you get from the Accutron movement inside. It's licensed from Bulova, and 300. Omega set it from 360 to 300 hertz, probably because 300 looks cooler in a logo. If any of you know the technical reason why they went with 300 instead of 360, I'd like to know that as well. I couldn't find that in my research why Omega chose that frequency over 360, other than 300 sounds cooler. But 360 can sound cool too, so I don't know. That's an interesting thing, and I'll do some more research on that, and hopefully I'll have an answer for you all later. Onward and upward. Here we have an interesting piece. This is the Universal Genève Senna. And this is another example of a watch that could become more famous because of its linkage to its franchise than to the fact that it's a watch. It was originally billed as the first carbon watch. It's like a carbon-filled plastic. The links aren't load-bearing. They're just bolted to the front of metal links. But it is an attractive piece, and it does have a Valjoux 7750 inside. It does have a sapphire crystal. Here, I'll let you zoom out and see. See, does have a sapphire crystal and pretty high quality at that. So when you think about the fact that this is a steel-cased integrated bracelet, interesting design, Valjoux 7750 watch, and the loom is still in pretty good shape. The loom is still in pretty good shape on this piece. It really is just a very nice watch, and it's a good value for the money, you know, considering it's worth about $1,500, and there are a lot of other watches out there with the same kind of specifications that go for not much more, but a little bit more. And then you have, like I said, you have that beautiful Senna tie-in, the race car driver. All right, let's see, what do we have here? Let's grab this. Going up the value chain, this is not very valuable, which is why I'm referring to it, but it's an awesome, awesome deal. This is my Reef Tiger Chinese tourbillon. So you get a tourbillon watch at a reasonable price. Here, let me wind it up so it goes. And as you see, it started right up again. It's actually a very nicely made, well-designed piece. It screams its price point. It's worth about $1,000, actually between $500 and $1,000, depending on who you get it from. I don't think Reef Tiger stoops as low to go as $500 on their pieces, but you can get a Chinese tourbillon cheaper. I do believe that you get what you pay for, and a $1,000 Chinese tourbillon will at least give you a case of a reasonable quality, a crystal of a reasonable quality, right? Sapphire crystal. Right, you know, zoom out. So here we have sapphire crystal, tourbillon, steel case. I added the Milanese strap, but that didn't cost very much. And frankly, you really can't beat that for bang for the buck. Junghans charges extra to put a sapphire crystal on their watches. So yes, it's a Chinese tourbillon, but I mean, it's like with anything. If you shop around, you can find something of value within even any good product offering. And yeah, worth it. And I wouldn't sell it for the $500, $300 I could get for it. I might as well keep it. And it is a nice looking piece. You know, it is not an embarrassing thing to wear on your wrist. Let's put it that way. All right, as we're getting into the final stretches, let's look, and okay, we're getting past all of the, you know, novelty pieces and cutesy pieces into where I call the heavy hitter realm. And the last of what I would consider my novelty, fun, interesting, vintage pieces is the amphibia. Everybody should have an amphibia in their collection. They cost less than $100, and you can dive to 200 meters with them, and they'll shrug off anything you can do to them. And you just polish the crystal with a little bit of poly watch. Yes, the bezel action stinks, but you can pop it off and tighten the spring and at least make it a little tighter. It really is a good piece, and it's a great gift watch for someone who you know would be interested in a watch, but either A, doesn't trust themselves, or B, you don't trust them, or you know what I'm saying? You could give it to someone, it's a good mechanical piece, they would really enjoy it, and you can't go wrong with it. It's got an interesting construction. It's got a back plate that sits on a big gasket, and this ring holds it in place. So it's a compressor design. It gives with the water. So excellent technology, excellent horology, really nice piece, and under $100. I mean, you can't beat that with a stick, which probably comes from acoustics, the Native Americans, that term, out of just idle thinking. Now, the rest of these are going to be in no particular order because I like all of them. Or actually, I'll put the ones I like the least first. So like this spring drive. All right? I like it, but of all of these on the table that are left, you know, it's like the Bachelorette or whatever. This one is a nice one to have, but it's the first one to go when I'm encountering financial issues, because it's the first spring drive, and that's why it's collectible. But I'm not a big fan of daily wear watches that have no loom, and this is just a big, chunky, blue-faced sports watch with no loom. That does mean that it'll last longer. The loom won't be noticeably fading over the decades, but it does take a hit in the day-to-day utility with no loom. They could have even just put some pips on it or something. But otherwise, it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. And of course, you've got the beautiful spring drive mechanism in there to look at. Moving forward, we've got the Alpina. This is the limited edition Alpina regulator. Well, at least the most current iteration. They've had them over the years. Frankly, like I mentioned in the video about this, the only big difference is the color of the hands and the face. I think they should have offered this as a regular item with the company, but you know, gives it a little bit of a cachet and makes it a little bit more collectible. And a sports regulator is unusual. Most regulators are dressy watches, which ignore the history of regulators being for people like train conductors and ship captains and such. Sapphire. It's not tipping it over, but it's sapphire. Oh, there we go. Just making sure. But it's a beautiful piece, screw-down crown, automatic movement, and this watch is worth about $1,500, $1,800. And it's got that really nice texturing in the dial. And I talk all kinds of things about this and how to read a regulator in the video about this watch. Okay, now we're getting down to, you know, the dirty 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, almost dozen now. All right, and walking up, I'm really torn now because now I'm at watches that I wear on a relatively regular basis. I like to rotate my watches daily, so everybody gets fun. I believe watches are like the toys in Toy Story. They cry when you're not wearing them. They miss being on your wrist. I just got this back from the watch doctor, but locally, thankfully. Had to replace the tube in the crown so that the crown could screw down again. So this is the crown, the pushers don't screw down, so be careful with it, but it is reasonably waterproof, and it's a sporty take on an annual calendar. It's an annual calendar, big date, which is an interesting function combination, and it's a flyback. And you see a flyback, you can reset on the fly, and it will continue to run. So this is a really nice combination of functions, complications, and it's done in a very attractive, oh, sorry. And it's done with a very attractive movement. It's actually a modular movement made up of 3 separate modules, a watch module, chronograph, flyback chronograph module, and an annual calendar module. But that's how you get this level of functionality in a watch that sells used for about $2,500. All right. I have a lot of Milanese straps because it's pretty much my go-to metal strap if the watch came with a leather strap, because aftermarket metal straps tend to look cheap, but Milanese straps are always done classy because they're a recognized aftermarket strap. A lot of people want to put it on their watches, so you can find really good Milanese straps from a lot of different places. And that way you can put a nice metal strap on a watch and it doesn't look weird because no one expects the Milanese strap to be fitted to the watch. So, this is my Longines. I looked around a long time for this because you could find this one all over the place in like a beige face, a off-white face, with the same functionality, non-applied logo. And I just looked and looked and looked until I could find it with a blue face, and it just looks gorgeous. I do a video on this and how pretty obvious some of the things they do to save money are, but the bottom line is that you're not going to find a watch with this level of features at this price point with this specific set of features. I mean, there are a lot of companies that specialize in presenting good value, and when you're going to see a few more of those pieces in my collection. But this is a column wheel, chronograph, moon phase, complete calendar for about $3,000. Really, really worth the money. All right. Now let's go to, bring some more in. We've got, I recently picked this up. This is the Frédéric Constant World Timer. I was really thinking about getting their perpetual calendar. I was going to save up and buy that for my 60th birthday this year. And they didn't do a good job, in my opinion, of hiding the pushers. But I do like them, and I do like what they're doing with their watches. And I really like this World Timer. What I really like about it is you can control everything from the crown. I'll do a video on that as well. This, like I said, this is a recent acquisition, so I'll put it in the queue for future episodes. But really pretty piece. I paid 2,000 euros for this, so like about, you could probably find one around for 2,500 bucks out there. I bought mine used. The strap was kind of beat up, but I actually like having it on this NATO. I bought a Milanese for this one as well. Just to have a nice metal strap to go with it, because that's the nice thing about buying. And you can buy Milanese in every size, and they run you about $50 to $60 for the strap, and it looks gorgeous on pretty much any piece. All right, we're in the final stretch. The real heavy hitters in the collection. All right, let's go in no particular order now. That's my Tudor Black Bay Heritage. Some of you may have seen earlier episodes. I really went on a lot of soul searching with this one. I went through. I have a Rolex phase. Sold all the Rolexes because I realized that you can have Rolexes. They're a great single watch collection. If you had one watch, I'd recommend a Rolex, hands down. If you're going to have just one watch, Or if your other watches in your collection are a Patek and an Audemars Piguet, then buy the Rolex Explorer as a beater. But if your watches are all in the $3,000 to $5,000 range, $2,000 to $3,000 range, those watches are way out of the average collector's class. Most of the watches in my collection are in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. I didn't pay more than $6,000 for any piece in my collection. And that's why my next video is going to be on, not my next, but one of my upcoming is going to be on, there's no such thing as an entry-level luxury watch, because, no, There's no such. I mean, is there an entry-level car? What you get training wheels or something? Now, some car companies will convince you that some of their models are entry-level, and they deliberately under-engineer them. But companies who did that have gone out of business. Even Tudor itself was created as a second banana to Rolex, and realized it couldn't compete in the marketplace effectively as Rolex's second banana, so it had to create its own reputation for making good pieces using Rolex parts. And the modern Tudor has broken completely free from the second banana syndrome, demonstrating that there is no such thing as an entry-level luxury watch. Tudor was created specifically to be an entry-level product family, and no one today would say Tudor is an entry-level luxury watch except people who own more expensive pieces. But nice piece. I really like it. Good wrist presence. I like the interesting mix of the gold indices and hands on the black face with the steel and the red. Like I said, just nice wrist presence. Really nice piece. I like having it in my collection. All right, here we go. On up the list. This is my Breitling Navitimer. It's the GMT version. This was another piece I took a long look for. It came with the leather strap, and I don't have a Milanese for this. I've got some other metal strap for it, but I like to keep it on a NATO because it's such a big piece. It can make the back of your wrist sweat. And I mean, I cut all of the keepers off of my NATOs, but then there's still at least one pass of cloth between the watch and my wrist. Another nice thing about the Navitimer is it gives you the offsets of all of the cities around the world. So it's just a fun, funky, cool piece. Slide rule bezel. I explain how to use the slide rule bezel. I accidentally say algorithm instead of logarithm, but you know what I meant there. But just a really, really sharp piece, and always gives you a subject on Flieger Friday. All right, and we're in the home stretch. We're at the point where any one of these watches could be someone's one watch collection. And if I were out of the house and someone robbed my house and stole every single watch except the one I was on my wrist, I'd go out. If I were out the door with any of these six, I would be happy. Frankly, if I had to go down to, say, a six-piece collection, I'd go to seven. I'd bring this one back. I'd bring the Navitimer back. No, actually, no. I'd probably bring the Tudor back. But see how hard it is? So there we go. That's an 8-piece. But in the case of, like, if I had to go down to a 6, these 6, I would say, represent a perfect 6-watch collection that could go toe-to-toe in any circumstance. Sport, parties, dress, tuxedo, you name it, and you got a watch for it. And we'll start with the Montblanc Geosphere. This is the titanium Geosphere. This is another watch I hunted for a while to make sure I could get my hands on one. They weren't easy to get, and a little bit of hunting and perseverance, and I got my hands on it. It is just a phenomenal piece, and it has a jumping hour hand like the Explorer 2 or the GMT Master, and what it has that neither of those watches has is this beautiful northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere that rotate in time to provide you worldwide day-night awareness, and if you had really good eyesight, worldwide time coverage. But you don't need perfect eyesight because there is a sub-dial for a second time zone. So it actually is a quasi-world timer GMT. Fantastic piece. Really glad I have it in my collection. Ceramic bezel. So now let's look at this beautiful piece. This is my Tag Heuer Carrera 2 Skeleton GMT. Another awesome GMT. It has a jumping hour hand, only jumps in one direction, but it jumps the date in the other. So basically you spin the time to where you need it to be and then jump the date to back where you were, and you can adjust the hour without hacking the movement, just like the Explorer 2 and GMT and the Montblanc Geosphere. So this is a true GMT with jumping hour hand and date function and chronograph. So it's just a really, really lovely piece. Very techno-geeky, fits me on certain times to a T, and also ceramic Batman-style bezel, but nobody would look at this and say they're trying to copy Rolex. This was my Grail watch, the Zenith Open Heart Chronomaster. I had really thought about getting one, and for a while I was at a point in my watch collecting journey that I had considered it above me in price pointing and the like. But as I became a better collector and I got to know, be more confident in my purchases and know dealers and know the market better, I was able to find this on the gray market at a reasonable price. And so I bought it for myself. I consider this to be my birthday present for this year, but I bought it at opportunity. And I'm too cheesy to keep it in a box until my birthday. I'll just give myself a card and say, just remember earlier this year, dude, and be happy. But this is a gorgeous, gorgeous watch. The Open Heart El Primero movement is classic. The story behind the El Primero and how it was saved by by a really, really dedicated man. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece. To me, a Grail watch is not the end of a collection. To me, it's what I would consider the pinnacle of a collection. I honestly do not foresee myself buying a watch more expensive than this or higher up the food chain than this. This is about as classy, fancy, and high horology as I can handle. And I start running out of oxygen. I can't eat. I can only think of a handful of places where I could. I mean, the nice thing about this, you can wear this literally anywhere. But some people think it's a little bit too fancy for average things. But I really think this is a fantastic piece. So let's look at one of the pieces that I consider high horology in my collection, and that's this Jaeger-LeCoultre Polaris. And probably even some of the snobbier members of my audience would agree that this is one of the few high horology pieces that I have in this collection. And also a great argument for there's no such thing as an entry-level luxury watch, because some people call this an entry-level luxury watch, and the only major difference between this and the model above it is the addition of a date. The fit and finish is the same. It's a 1,000-hour chronograph. It's one of the reasons I popped open the strap for you. You know, you look at that watch, and you're going to say, what, this is entry-level luxury? No, I don't think there's such a thing as entry-level luxury. I think that there are watches at price points, and you buy the best watch you can afford within that price point. Now, a price point doesn't necessarily mean luxury. A price point could be because of functionality or whatever. Now, if it's because of materials and design, you can make the argument that it is luxury. And at that point, yes, some luxury manufacturers handicap their products. But if someone calls something entry-level luxury and it is not deliberately under-engineered like MP3 was over CD, for example, then no, they're just blowing smoke and they want to upsell you. Because if you're comfortable with a three-hander, and I really liked the symmetry of this, why not get this model? There's nothing wrong with this. This has the same QC as its more expensive brethren. And if you asked JLC, they would say, yes, it's an entry level. And we say, oh, you mean it's not good? And they say, no, it's great. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's either a fantastic watch for the price point, or it's not a fantastic watch for the price point. And there's no such thing as entry-level luxury. It's buying the best you can find at the price point. Okay? I do love this watch, though. Really sharp watch. The only ding against it is nothing fits. No straps fit on this damn thing. I had to put curved pins to get this NATO on it. I did fit a Milanese on it by literally grinding crescents into the end link. That's another advantage of buying a $40 bracelet. You can experiment on it with your Dremel. But it works so well as a sports watch, I don't mind. Speaking of another watch as a sports watch that also works as a killer dress watch or as a fantastic daily wear watch, is this Omega Globemaster. And this is the Omega Globemaster annual calendar. So it has every advantage of everything that Omega has in a watch. Advanced coaxial movement, advanced materials, advanced design, the sapphire crystal. This is some of the most aggressively, beautifully domed sapphire I have ever encountered in a watch. And this bezel is tungsten carbide. I've whacked this watch into a wall and had to pick pieces of the wall out of the watch. It is indestructible for a dress piece. And like I said, it's not really a dress piece, it's a daily wear piece. I've got the Omega alligator strap with deployant clasp, and that's what I wear with it when I want to wear it with a suit or really be fancy with it, because it is a drop-dead gorgeous piece, and it has phenomenal pedigree, and it is a gorgeous watch, and it hits all the buttons, and it makes a Datejust look like a Michael Kors. And the fact that it has a month hand really gives you a physical feel for the passage of the year. You know, you go, hey, it's almost half past the year now. Just a really, really sharp piece. And last but not least, the venerable Hesalite plastic crystal Speedmaster. I mean, there's been so much said about this piece. I've got videos on this piece. Everybody's got videos on this piece. If you've got more than 3-4 watches, one of them should be a Speedmaster. And I'm not just saying because you got to tick the box. I'm saying it because it's a hand-wound, beautifully, elegantly simple chronograph. And I can throw the alligator strap on this and it goes killer with a suit. Oh my God, it looks lovely with the black alligator strap. It is just to die for. The Speedmaster is a strap hog. You can put anything on it. I've seen pink straps on this kind of, I mean, really, I've seen all kinds of colors, all kinds of straps, all kinds of styles, all kinds of leathers, materials. The Speedmaster crushes. It's the coolest watch available. It's not the best watch you can buy. It's not the most expensive watch you can buy. It's not the most valuable watch you can buy. But until some other watch saves the lives of 3 astronauts, it's the coolest watch you can buy. And its looks back up every inch of its reputation. Its performance backs it up. It's just the quintessential watch. If you're going to have a single watch collection, you couldn't go worse than to have a Speedmaster. And frankly, I'd be hard put if I had to, like I said, if I had to get down to one piece, I'd probably go with the Globemaster. If I had to really get down to saying, okay, Alex, one piece, and you left the house and you came back and everybody got stolen except what you had on your wrist, I would say, okay, out of the entire collection, I would keep the Globemaster, or I would be glad that would be the only one I could have, because looks, performance, style, it just crushes in every aspect. Heat blued hands and indices, really, really bright lume, lovely date presentation. Since it's an annual calendar, you only have to change it on March 1st. So, yeah, that's my collection. Thanks for taking the time. I mean, this is going to take forever to edit, and it's probably going to take forever to watch, but I hope you get something from it. If you have any questions about any of the watches in the collection, I would really appreciate any questions. Thanks. So, that was my collection, and part of the way that I got here. If you have any questions about any aspect of my collection, I'd love to hear your questions. If you have any advice, I'll take any constructive criticism, and tips on interesting watches that I may have missed. I may be able to buy them and bring them into the show so we can all enjoy them. So thanks for taking the time, and please subscribe. It really helps. And I'm so close to being able to live stream, and then we can involve everyone in the conversation. Thanks. Thanks for taking the time.